We live in a world that's just obsessed with growth. But what if the real key to well-being isn't about getting more, but about having enough? Today, we're going to dive into the sufficiency economy philosophy, a pretty radical idea that suggests a middle path to development. So, this whole philosophy really kicks off with a question that gets right to the heart of modern life. We're constantly told to chase more, right? More growth, more stuff, more, well, everything. But what if that endless chase for more is the very thing that's leaving us with less of what actually matters? And look, that's not just some abstract philosophical question. It points to a very real problem, one the source material calls unfair development. It's this cycle we see playing out all over, where this relentless push for progress for some ends up creating instability, widening inequality, and just this deep sense of imbalance for so many others. So, what's the alternative? Well, that's where the sufficiency economy philosophy comes in. The best way to think about it is as a middle path. Instead of trying to maximize every little thing, the goal is to find a kind of dynamic balance. It's all built on three main ideas: moderation, reasonableness, and resilience. And this isn't just some dry economic theory. It's really a framework for how to live in harmony with our society and, our planet. Okay, so that all sounds pretty good in theory, right? But what does it actually look like when the rubber meets the road? Let's get into the mechanics of it and really break down the core principles of this whole middle path idea. And this is what's so fascinating, where this philosophy fits in. I mean, think about it. Most economic systems push us towards one of two extremes. Either it's all about maximizing growth no matter the cost, or it's about total state control. The sufficiency economy kind of looks at both of those and says, no, there's another way. It carves out this third path that's all about balance, moderation, and something I think we can all agree on: sustainable, long-term well-being. All right, so here's the whole framework, and it's actually beautiful in its logic. It kicks off with three main principles. First up, moderation. Super simple, right? It just means living within your means. Second, reasonableness. Basically thinking through the real consequences of your actions. And third, and this one's really interesting, self-immunity. Think of this like building your own personal shock absorber so you can handle the ups and downs life throws at you. But, and this is key, those principles don't work in a vacuum. They need to be supported by two essential conditions: knowledge, using what you know with care, and integrity, being honest, patient, and just seeing things through. So we've got the how, but what about the why? What's the fundamental worldview that makes all of this hang together? Let's dig a little deeper into the foundations of sufficiency. At its absolute core, this entire philosophy comes from one single powerful idea: a holistic worldview. It's a huge shift from seeing the world as just a collection of separate, competing parts to really understanding that it's all a deeply interconnected system. It's that realization that your well-being is completely tied to the well-being of your community and the health of the planet. And once you start to see things that way, your priorities just naturally start to shift. Your goals get a total rewrite. Suddenly, happiness isn't just about getting more stuff. It's about finding that deep inner contentment. Work becomes more than a paycheck. It's a way to actually develop yourself as a person. Resources aren't just things to be used up. They're precious things we need to manage carefully for the future. And change? Well, change stops being this chaotic thing and becomes a more gradual, mindful process. And this perspective leads to a pretty profound conclusion about who we are. This philosophy argues that the true nature of humanity is not to endlessly consume, but to find balance and meaning. Wow. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. That's a powerful shift. Okay, so this all leads to a really practical question, one you're probably asking right now. How do you actually live this way? So let's look at how this philosophy can go from being an abstract idea to a real, tangible lifestyle. At the end of the day, this philosophy is so much more than just an economic model. It's basically a guide for how to live your life. It's about consciously, deliberately building a life that's based on balance and self-reliance. It's about making your own choices instead of just getting swept up in that relentless current of more, more, more. And that brings us right back to where we started. This whole philosophy really challenges us to fundamentally rethink what words like success and progress even mean. It leaves us with one final, powerful question to chew on. In a world that's so obsessed with more, what if the real revolution is discovering the incredible power of enough?